So I'm just going to introduce now Gunda Schumann, who is our next speaker. She's from Germany and from Lesbian Action Center. And off you go. Thank you, Gunda.
I will talk about Article 1 of the Declaration on Women's Sex-Based Rights, reaffirming that the definition of woman and lesbian in law and policy is based upon the category of sex, the same as laid down in Article 1 of CEDAW Convention, Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. I will show you how gender ideology is discriminating against women as adult human females and against lesbians as adult human females sexually attracted to other women, and how this is infringing upon their human rights. Next slide, please. The gender ideology is using two tools. The first one, manipulation of language. The concept woman as an adult human female is being shifted to the concept of a person who has a female gender identity. That means socially constructed notions of gender. What does that mean? First, woman can also be an adult human male. Second, woman becomes a subset of her own. On the one hand, cis or biological woman. On the other hand, trans woman. Third, this shift in meaning has a ripple effect on lesbians. Lesbian is now a person who is sexually attracted to cis or biological and trans lesbians. That means heterosexual men. I give you 3 examples. Cotton sealing. These are panties of cis or biological lesbians that have to be broken through by trans lesbians. This language reminds us of male violence. Second example, lady stick or girl dick. These are labels used for the male sexual organ. Third example, lesbians divided. In an academic study recently published by the German Federal Ministry on Family, Senior Citizens, Women and Youth, discrimination of lesbian women as a sexual minority is not more at issue in the European context. Instead, discrimination of lesbians as defined by their gender identity, that means including men, gains interest, focusing on socially disadvantaged subgroups of lesbians, such as homeless or refugees, vis-a-vis well-off cis or biological lesbians. Now to the second tool, the legal enforcement of gender ideology through self-ID. Next slide, please. The person who wants to change his or her recorded sex from male to female and vice versa files an application with the state civil registry. What does that mean? First, a legal fiction applied in certain approved cases by state authorities, which means a man treated as a woman in public life, is being superseded by a personal declaration. Second, self-ID creates a presumption of access to female spaces instead of a presumption of exclusion for men. Third, self-ID decouples legal gender reassignment from any significant physical change. That means male appearance, such as beard and body hair, will be kept. Next slide, please. Now I will show you the consequences for women and especially for lesbians. First, the impact of shift in meaning on women and lesbians. Gender-neutral speech, such as person with a female gender identity or person that is attracted to cis biological lesbians and trans lesbians, doesn't make biology get away. It just removes the analytical tools to understand oppression in our patriarchal society and to address it. First, bodily integrity and autonomy require that a woman may choose to exclude a male. Removing women's ability to withhold consent or to voluntarily accept the risk of assault strips them of autonomy and holds her real fears of sexual assault in contempt. Example, women's shelter accepting males creates anxiety and confusion among female victims of male violence. Second, invasion of men with a female gender identity into the intimacy and autonomous spaces of lesbians strips them of their sexual identity, thus preventing empowerment. Example, labeling the male sexual organ as lady stick or girl dick is gaslighting lesbians into heterosexuality. Third, when lesbians are defined on the basis of their gender identity, homosexual women are even more marginalized and disappear as a discriminated sexual minority in the public view. Now I come to the legal implications of self-ID. Self-ID renders the category of sex meaningless, thereby stripping women and lesbians of their sex-based rights. Next slide, please. What does that mean? Official statistics, usually based on the category of sex, get distorted. That means forecasts, measures, and opinions against sex discrimination would be impeded. Affirmative measures concerning parity laws, quotas, scholarships, women's sport, protection against domestic violence, freedom of opinion and assembly would and are already being threatened. Third, sex-segregated spaces, toilets, women's shelters, prisons, and autonomous female spaces such as clubs, pubs, dating platforms would and are already been invaded by men who claim to be women. Next slide, please. Now I come to the conclusion. Sex exists. Trans women are a subspecies of men and vice versa. And language describing biological reality is valid. Only on the basis of this understanding, women's and lesbians' rights will be kept and defended. Thanks a lot for your attention.